So today's lesson is going to involve the prologue in heaven from Goethe's Faust. And the intro to Goethe's Faust really involves two characters. So the two characters you really need to know are God and man. So two characters. I should say God and man. It's Mephistopheles, okay? Mephistopheles and God. Okay? So those are your two major characters here. But in the very beginning, we have the three angels. We have Raphael, we have Gabriel, and we have Michael. Okay? Now, each of these angels symbolize something, okay? Raphael was a healer. Now, you know the angel Gabriel, he was a messenger. Okay? And Michael was a warrior, and he's the leader of all angels. Okay? So those are the three angels that we have right in the very beginning. And then in lines 9 to 21, we certainly have some important images here in the very beginning. All right? We have the images of, we have the sound of thunder. We have the sound of the storm. We have lightning. So you can definitely see the storms. Okay, you definitely have the sun, you have rocks, okay, you have a whole bunch of different images here, all right, you have lightning, okay, that definitely show that this work is a romantic piece of literature. So some of the ideas that we want to put down here, we want to put down the natural images, so we have thunder, lightning. We have the ocean, cliffs, all different images of nature, and nature was, and then the sun. And nature was important to romantic poets, because romantic writers, because it showed how nature, if they were talking to nature, they were close to God. Okay, so Mephisto and God kind of speak to each other in as a casual conversation. All right, so as a casual conversation between these two guys. All right, and it seems like these guys certainly talk to each other from time to time. So it's a casual conversation. Oops. Go back here. Casual conversation. In a matter-of-fact tone. So that's how these two guys talk to each other. Okay, they seem to have a conversation quite often. And then we have this comparison, okay, as Mephisto kind of starts off talking to the Lord here, lines, about lines 48, lines 29 to about line 50. We certainly get to see there's a different conversation between the two. And here's where in lines 40 to 50, Mephisto talks about man. And he says he's as strange today as that first day you made him. And that first day being Adam and Eve. His life would not be so bad, not quite, had you not granted him a gleam of heaven's light. He calls it reason, uses it not the least, except to be more beastly than any beast. He seems to me, if your honor does not mind, like a grasshopper, the long-legged kind, that's always in flight and leaps as it flies along, and then in the grass strikes up the same old song. I could only wish he could confine himself to the grass. He thrusts his nose into every filth, alas. So Mephistopheles has some interesting ideas about man, and he certainly compares man to a grasshopper. So you might want to put down that he's a grasshopper. And when he says he's like a grasshopper, we're using a simile. Right? So we're using a simile there to compare man to a grasshopper. Okay? And we could certainly probably say that Mephistopheles thinks that man is never satisfied with life. Wants more. Okay? And that was the ideal romantic man. He always wanted more. He was striving for more. He was always trying to put himself on a par with God. Now, Mephistopheles seems like he wants to help man. But we certainly know that when someone comes to try and help us, they're really sometimes not really helping us. They're really kind of leading us to, to danger. And what's interesting here is how, as we continue a little further along, that Mephistopheles brings up man, that he wants to help him. But in another series, he's really how Mephistopheles views Faust. And God's the one who brings him up. All right, so God brings up the name of Faust. Okay, and what's interesting is the literary device where Mephistopheles uses simile to compare man to a grasshopper. Now, what God's going to do, he's going to use a different literary pairing man to a sapling. Okay, so what we want to put down here is God is the gardener and man is the sapling. Now, the literary device that God uses here is a metaphor. Okay, so we have the use of a metaphor here. God is the gardener, man is the sapling, and a gardener takes care of this young tree and makes sure that it grows up and feeds it and gives it water. And God feels that Faust is the person he has to take care of. All right? So Mephistopheles wants to be given a chance in line 70 to take his soul, to tempt Faust. So what we might want to put down is in line 70, he wants to be able to tempt Faust and take his soul. Okay, so that all goes there like that. Let me just make a couple adjustments here so I can write this down. This all goes together. I don't know why it didn't move, but I'll move it up and then write it down again so everybody can get it. Okay, so let's see if this all goes good. All right, so I'll put it down for you again. So we're using a metaphor. Okay, God is the gardener. All right, man is the sapling. Okay, we're going to move here. There we go. Okay. And what we want to put for number 7 is that Mephistopheles is given a chance in line 70 to tempt, tempt Faust and take his soul. Okay. All right. Now, there's one thing that makes Mephistopheles. So what Mephistopheles gets a chance to do is excited about it because he can claim a living soul instead of a dead one. So that's the chance he's got now. He can take a living soul and instead of a dead one. But we get this, God is saying here is that Mephistopheles is not going to win. God feels that Faust will stay on the true and right path. That man may make mistakes, but he's going to follow the true and right path and stay close to God. So Mephistopheles has not trying to help him. And here's where God brings up Faust on page 989. I think it's line 57 here. And the Lord says, do you know Faust? And Mephistopheles says, the doctor, because he is a doctor, I, my servant. And Mephistopheles is indeed, he serves you oddly enough, I think. The fool has no earthly habits in meat and drink. The ferment in him drives him wide and far. That he is mad, he too has almost guessed. He demands of heaven each fairest star, and of earth each highest joy and best. And all that is new and all that is far could bring no calm to his deep swell of his breast. So it's interesting here, device, and here's where God talks about Mephistopheles here. And he says, now he may serve me only grudgingly. Soon I shall lead him to the light. The gardener knows when the sapling first turns green, that flowers and fruit will make the future bright. So here we have God, really excited here about getting that chance to tempt Faust. And it's the whole idea of how he gets to tempt him. All right. So the Lord is giving Mephistopheles this free will. And he says, look, if you give me a chance, let me do it. The Lord says, fine. He's going to stay on the true and narrow path. And Mephistopheles says at the bottom of page 990, he says, I thank you for that as regards the dead. The dead have never taken my fancy. I favor cheeks that are full and rosy. In lines 87 to 89, the Lord gives Mephisto the possibility of taking that soul. And he says right here on page 991, I should say, very well, you have my full permission. Divert this soul from its primal source and carry it, if you can seize it, down with you upon your course, and stand ashamed when you must needs admit. A good man with his groping intuitions still knows the path to true and fit. So what chance to tempt God, to tempt man, I should say, and we get to see here at the end how Mephistopheles kind of talks down to God. And that would probably be the next question, the last question that we want to note, is what's the attitude towards Mephistopheles, towards God? And here it is at the end. The Lord says, fine, you've got your chance. He's going to stay true to me. But Mephistopheles says here at the end that he kind of talks contemptuously towards God. And he says, I like to see the old one now and then and try to keep the relations on the level. It's really decent of so great a person to talk so humanely, even to the devil. So it seems like these two talk quite often, but Mephistopheles treats him kind of contemptuously by calling him an old man. So that's the prologue in heaven, where Faust and Mephistopheles deal with how to have this contest where Mephistopheles will get a chance to tempt Faust, but God's taking not worried about it. He realizes that Faust may be tempted, but Faust is a good man and will find the right path and return to God even with all his mistakes.